great day in Arlington. It's a great day with the Senior Men's Club. We have Jeff Williams as your speaker. Come on board, Jeff. It's your turn.
Thank you for having me. And actually, when I was asked to come, they said, we want you to tell us what you've been doing. Because everybody says you're retired and drinking coffee and eating donuts all the time. Is that really the truth? Is that really what you're doing? And then also, what they said, what else would you like to speak about? Well, I want to share with you guys about the journey of why the Medal of Honor Museum came to Arlington, Texas. Y'all know all about the museum, but I want you to know about the journey and the story. And many of y'all participated in some way or another. And if nothing else, because you have helped make this city a veteran-friendly city, you helped to bring the Medal of Honor Museum here. But many of y'all that I've known for a long time know that I have been an engineer, and that when I came to town, I was a young engineer in the mid-'80s, and I'm a civil engineer, and Arlington is our base. But we do work all over Texas, there and beyond. And so when I left the mayor's office, they had to take me back because I own the firm. Now, I don't know if they wanted me back, but I came back, and y'all, it's very interesting, and many of y'all know this. Things have changed so much in technology. We're at the beginning of a technology revolution like the world has never seen. And so you can imagine in an engineering firm, there are so many opportunities. So I had to do a lot of studying on what all was available in technology. And I've upgraded all the technology for my firm. But then the bigger thing, and the thing that scared me, was how society has changed, because you've got to have young people coming into your firm, don't you? And I also had to talk to some of my older engineers and said, hey, y'all want to have help, don't you? I mean, otherwise you're going to be doing everything yourself. And so we had to work on their societal changes within. For instance, we created what we call a high-five meeting for our staff. And once a week, we bring everybody together. We let them know what's going on in the company as a whole. And then we share where people may have helped. When we talk about high fives, and hey, so-and-so helped me in doing this. And we share that with them. And after our first couple, one of my engineers has been around a while. He says, Jeff, what is going on here? He said, just tell them to work hard and we don't need to waste an hour doing this meeting. But again, however, then the same thing goes. Some of my younger people said, I just love this meeting. Man, it's awesome that we get to say thank you to the other people in there and we find out what's going on. Well, it took some time, but now everybody's enjoying the meeting. And we added something which we call the nugget. And one of our engineers tells something that they have discovered, whether it might be how to work the design of the storm sewer, which I know y'all are really interested in. Or it may be something they discovered on the computer, and so it's something all of us can use there in the meeting. But isn't it interesting how things have changed in business? And of course also even the way you lead, because no longer does a type A manager work. You've really got to involve people and to bring them along and for them to buy in to what's going on in the company. We also, I gutted my offices because there's a little thing called LED lights that are pretty phenomenal there, and we got rid of all the yellow light there in the office, and then in addition to that, we designed the office with collaboration rooms among my engineering teams. And then we also have conference tables that make into ping pong tables and shuffleboards that can also be conference tables along the way, so that we can have socials at night and bring the family in, and also we've got some pretty good ping pong tournaments at lunch and so forth there along the way, but also to be more efficient. Isn't it interesting, Paul? I spent more time reading books about business there in that. And then here's something that I've never seen in my career, my 40 years here in Arlington, something that happened this year, is I prepared for a recession this year, at least a slowdown, because in my career, whenever interest rates go up and inflation goes up, the people stop spending money from the private sector to design and build things, so it slows down. And we went to the public sector and we got a lot of work from the city and state, but guess what? The private sector is still moving forward. There are so many people moving here to this area and businesses that are moving here that people are spending their money and there to move forward on design and design of all different kinds of things. Yes, even though the housing market has slowed down, it is still going. And in fact, Meridian, there is still the #1 master plan community in the Metroplex and selling a lot of homes there. But also, we're seeing the same thing in a lot of commercial and industrial complexes there along the way. And then, another opportunity is we have never seen this much money in the transportation industry ever. In fact, throughout history. And so there are opportunities for us to be able to move ahead there and getting our roads repaired and so forth, especially from the state and federal governments there. There is new money that's coming in, so there's opportunities. And of course, we know here in the Metroplex, with the growth that we're going to have, we've got a lot of work to do to keep up with the number of people moving in. So it's an interesting dynamic. I'll add to that, I think another reason that things are going as well as they are here in the Metroplex, a lot of people have built a lot of wealth here over the last few years, and they needed to invest their money. Well, I think they're investing it now in building, and so that is continuing on. But one of the other things I want to share with y'all that was very interesting to me is that New York University took an interest in Arlington, Texas. It started because the Washington Post said, and this, by the way, this was 8 years ago. They said that Washington Post printed that while everybody wasn't looking, Arlington, Texas became the sports capital of the nation. And when you sit there and think about it, you're hard pressed to see somebody that might beat us there and then, especially with all of the different professional teams that are here and then even the facilities we have. So they came and asked me there if they could do a study on what Arlington should do next in sports. And they were going to do it with their graduate students. I said, sure, didn't cost us anything. We'll be interested to hear what you've got. Well, New York University came back and said, we believe you need to go into esports. We said, well, what's that? And well, it's video gaming. And then I go, well, what's the purpose there and how do they make money? And said, well, a lot of companies have discovered that they can advertise at the esports tournaments and be able to reach the young millennials and sell their products. And so they are spending a lot of money in advertising in esports. And then they also told me that the national college champion of esports was the University of Texas at Arlington. And then y'all know that? We didn't know that. I mean, here they were right in town, and hardly anybody knew that they had won that. But then when we started delving into it, one of the big things too, besides esports being a burgeoning industry, it also could help us to keep and retain a lot of our young talent here and to attract other talent, which we know in business is really key. It's also key to having a vibrant town. So we built the largest esports arena here around, but here's where it gets interesting. New York University then studied us during the pandemic and looked at what was going on here in the pandemic. And they believe that Arlington, Texas came out of the pandemic quicker than any city in America. And of course, we were able to host the first neutral site World Series. We also hosted the National Finals Rodeo there when Las Vegas couldn't do it. And then we had the Texas Rose Bowl that Pasadena couldn't do and held it here. But the bigger thing is, think about the businesses that came out there and then how creative they were in doing that. One quick story along the pandemic lines that I think is very uplifting is that you may recall that we got the word that they were shutting down all the restaurants except for takeout. You couldn't come into the restaurants anymore. That was the day, that was the week of St. Patrick's Day. And y'all know, Jay Gilligan's, they make the majority of their money there in that week. And Randy Ford was devastated, the owner of Jay Gilligan's, and so were we. You know, I mean, that's, nobody works harder, we know, they're in that. And so, that happened to be on a Tuesday when that order came down, and that was supposed to be their last day they could be open. And we had a council meeting, and after the council meeting was over, I grabbed the city manager, let's go talk to Randy there. And we go down there. Well, there was a traffic jam when we drove up. And Randy had thought up, hey, I'm going to have a takeout, not a window, but a booth, a takeout booth. And he had put it on social media and called and emailed. And he said, hey, you can't come in the restaurant, but you can come get takeout from Jay Gilligan's. And he had 40 cars lined up there. And he had set up his mobile unit. And of course, he did that throughout the deal and survived there through it. But when we walked up, he said, y'all gonna shut me down? I said, no, man. We are excited about what you've done. He said, well, I don't have a permit or anything. You don't have to have a permit to do takeout. And anyway, that's kind of the spirit of Arlington, isn't it? You know, people think up ways to make it, people help, and that was throughout the pandemic we saw that. Well, let's go back to 2019, the year before the pandemic. And I'm going to tell you about a fun journey. And by the way, 2019 was a fun year, wasn't it? And little did we know what was going to happen to us in 2020 with the pandemic. But it was probably around April of 2019. I got a call there from, and it was, I don't know, 7:30 at night from a guy by the name of Steve Cavler. Many of y'all know him. He's lived here for a long time. He said, Jeff, I just got a call from Sid Epps, president of Air Power Foundation, and he didn't have your number, so I told him I would call you. He said that the National Medal of Honor Museum would like to meet with you in the morning. They've got some of their site selection committee here, and they've been over to Dallas, and it did not go well. And anyway, they called Sid there because of him. And by the way, Air Power Foundation is one of the biggest support organizations for veterans benefits, and also has the largest veterans banquet called Skyball there that gives to the veterans. So knowing Sid was not going to be happy that they were not coming to Texas, they told him that, hey, Dallas didn't do so well, we're not going to, and that was the only city we had in Texas as one of our cities. And anyway, Sid did like any Arlington citizen would do. He said, well, have you looked at Arlington? And they said, what's Arlington? What is that? I'll tell you something. And so anyway, Sid then took it. He said, I spent about 20 minutes telling them about Arlington. And they said, look, we will stay the next day if you could get the mayor to meet with us. So anyway, when Steve Cavler asked me if I'd meet with him the next day, I said, no, I'm too busy. Y'all know I didn't do that. Yes, I'm stammering all over myself. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely we will. What time do they want to come? He said, well, they mentioned 10 o'clock. So anyway, I said, well, bring them on. And of course, we had been recruiting companies, and we had, in fact, we had also had Amazon come. So we had our materials pretty well ready. But I did call Michael Jacobson, Chamber of Commerce, there. He came in, and then Jim Parajon come. Trey, our city manager, was tied up, but our deputy city manager came in. We stayed up a whole lot of the night preparing for that because this was a big opportunity. But you know, one of the things that shocked me is I said, well, where are they moving from? You know, this is the National Medal of Honor Museum. You know, surely this was built sometime somewhere else a And I really thought, well, they must be moving from DC, but their answer shocked me. They said that they had never built a Medal of Honor museum. That the closest thing they had was on a battleship in Charleston that has a small museum there for it. And the Medal of Honor recipients, they're the living recipients, are really pushing to try to get the museum built as soon as they can so that they will have a place to work out of and so that the message can get out. So anyway, the next day, they came in and the meeting couldn't have gone better, there as a matter of fact. And then of course when they came into City Hall, you know what they saw? Saw Colonel Neil Kirby right at our City Hall. And that was really exciting. Later on, when the whole committee came in, one of them bent over and stuck his finger on the sidewalk there in front of the statue. He said, I just wanted to see if the cement was still wet. We did that several years ago. We all know Cleveland McAllister and Richard Agamemnon led that effort there in it. But doesn't it make a statement that we care about our veterans there and having that statue right there at City Hall? Well, that set it in a tremendous tone, and it's a great tribute here to our community that we do care about veterans that came through loud and clear right at the beginning. And then, of course, we shared with them many reasons why this would be a great place for the museum. Well, at the end of the meeting, they told us that we would like to bring in the entire site selection committee in 2 weeks. We'd like for you to host a reception for the area and bring in leaders from the Metroplex there in addition to you, and we'd like for you to share again about why. And then we want to have some of our Medal of Honor recipients talk to you about why this is so important. So we prepared the reception, and we had leaders from all over, and by the way, some from Dallas. You know, we did not want to, we wanted to be united. And I've got to commend Dallas for being willing to jump in, even though they had been knocked out there of the competition. But we had leaders from all over North Texas there at that first reception. We had, of course, many of y'all know General Brady, and you've heard his story. I'm going to go to another story there of Britt Slavinsky. There actually was there and shared his story. And of course, his story actually took place in Afghanistan, in which he was actually commanding his squadron, and they had been sent in at the top of the mountain with 3 helicopters, and they came under heavy fire when they started to land. And they lost one of their soldiers that actually fell out of the helicopter there on top of that mountain. And they came down and then crash landed there in the bottom of that valley. And they sent in some other helicopters that were shot down. They're trying to come in to help. And Britt Slavinsky was told then that they were not going to be sending in any other helicopters, although they had Navy SEALs ready to come in. But they were so afraid that they would lose their helicopters, and they didn't have that many. And of course, they also were certainly worried about the Navy SEALs too. But anyway, here's where it got super interesting. And that is one of the Navy SEALs that was listening and prepared to come and listen to this radio conversation was our current president and CEO of the Medal of Honor Museum, Chris Cassidy. He was one of those Navy SEALs, and he heard this, and he said, you know, his story was they were begging to go and help. Well, Britt Slavinsky, when he was told there was no help coming, he knew he had the soldier up top, and I'm cutting a lot of the details out, but he took his helicopter that he had that was not running well and went up after his soldier there in it. And unbeknownst to him, another helicopter did come in that the command did not know about, and they were able to help rescue them because they came in there in the mix. But Britt received the Medal of Honor there, and they will tell you that they receive it on behalf of their fellow soldiers. They also do not want you ever saying that they didn't win anything. They are just representing the fact that they would step up, help their fellow soldiers, and fight for freedom. But they also, here's where there wasn't a dry in the place when Britt started talking about that they want to give back more after they receive the medal than they did before. And they want to champion the values of character, integrity, sacrifice, courage, commitment, citizenship, and patriotism. Now listen to those. I'm going to do them again. Integrity, sacrifice, courage, commitment, citizenship, and patriotism. Does the country need that? Absolutely. I mean, these are values that we know work, and it makes a difference in both your personal life and your business life. There, it's paramount. And then, of course, we saw it there in the school. Y'all probably seen it too. They go out in the schools all over the country doing that. But then he went on to say that here, this is the highest military honor that can be given, and yet there's never been a museum built for this. And then they shared with us that they would like to see it built within the next few years, because there's 63 of them living now, and they're continuing to get older, and they want to do it. So consequently, they shared with us, we eliminated Washington, D.C. because it's going to take us 20 years to get it built in Washington, D.C. And they said that, we're looking at cities where we can get it built quicker and make it happen. And we also thought that we won't get lost in all the other museums if we go to other cities. And the people will find us, because we're interested in a lot of people coming to it. But we are going to create educational programs for youth and adults to champion those character values that they share with us. Well, everybody in that room there that heard that said, we not only think Arlington is the best place for it, we need for this museum to be here. We could see how that we were the best place, and it made all of us want to work that much harder. And so we knew, though, that at that time there were 10 cities still in it. They had shrunk it down from 20 to 10, and we were, after that reception, by the way, I left out something else. After that reception, we were selected to be in one of the 10. However, though, the other 9 cities had 6 months ahead of us because they had already been looking for 6 months. So we had some catch-up to do. And so we worked all the time on getting them into Arlington as much as we could. Generally, we were able to get some of them in about every 2 weeks. And we would have different things for it. Of course, looking for the site was one of those things. But in taking them around, they picked the site there, which was where the Little League ballpark used to be, right beside the convention center, across the lake from the stadium, so it would be more reflective and out of the hubbub, but also in a very reflective state when they show the TV cameras of the Cowboy games, and they shoot down the lake, the Medal of Honor Museum would be in the picture. Well, a lot of things happened there over the next few months, and we were working hard there to show them why Arlington would be the best place. And it ended up being us, Denver, and San Diego there at the end. San Diego there was not real aggressive, but we got wind that Denver had been working this hard, and Peter Coors and Peyton Manning were the 2 leaders in making that happen in Denver. And so we had the business community engaged. We got the governor engaged. We got President Bush to make some calls. There he helped us. That's kind of good when the former president of the United States makes some calls for you. That helped. But we said, okay, well, what can we do to offset Peyton Manning? Y'all know who we called. Roger Staubach, graduate of Annapolis there, and Roger was incredible there with the team itself, talking about the selection team. And then, in addition to that, Denver took a move after we had done that, and actually they went forward and gave the Medal of Honor Museum a piece of land right beside the state capitol. It was a beautiful piece of land, a beautiful setting. And of course, we had a hurdle to go over because we couldn't give that land away. You know, I've got some of our council members here. Y'all know that that land out there, we can lease it, but we cannot sell it that is in the entertainment district. And so we had to go through why a long-term lease was as good as giving the land there with it. Well, it was really one of the toughest meetings we had had because Denver had done an incredible job selling their site. And so we went through why it was and then at the end, we told them that, hey, we will lease this to you on a 99-year lease for a nominal amount of money. And anyway, they said, oh, you're going to charge us, huh? We said, well, yes, we are. We're going to charge you $1 a year. Here's the first $1. Let's sign it up right now. Let's go. And they laughed and leaned back in their chair and said, hey, we get it. We went through a lot of other discussion. And so we knew we had gotten somewhat on level ground, but they did even tell us that they really liked the Denver site. And then God took over. Guess what happened that next week? There was a big protest at the state capitol in Denver. And guess where the protesters set up shop? On that piece of land they were given the Medal of Honor Museum. So guess what we did? We had our school children sending patriotic letters to the board, and somehow the board members and the selection committee got that news story of that riot on that in protest on that piece of land. A lot of it was sent from Arlington for some reason. And y'all, it did hit home because think about it. The last thing you want to have at your Medal of Honor Museum is to be having protesters out in front of you on whatever issue that may be going on in the state that has nothing to do with them. So that did help. But here was the closing deal that really sent it over the top. Is that we had our school children, and right after that, we had a major meeting in which they brought the entire board here, and they took the entire board to Denver. We brought in 6 of our school children, each one of them to talk about the importance of those character values, that integrity, sacrifice, courage, commitment, citizenship, and patriotism. Then a mother of one of those child that y'all know, Jeannie Duquesne, former Army commander, and she shared as a mother and as a former Army commander the importance of that, and especially when she started talking about as a mother what a difference that was going to make in our kids' lives to have this. It made a huge impact. When they got done, the board gave them a standing ovation. And then the other thing that we did is that we did take them onto the field at the Star of AT&T Stadium. But when they came in, we had the Martin High School Choir, Grammy Award winning, to sing Deep in the Heart of Texas and the Star Spangled Banner. And there wasn't a dry eye of them there, and each one of our students went and greeted them and talked to them about why they wanted the Medal of Honor Museum to come here. And then we then had that night, we had several presentations to them there with it, and many of y'all know our Congressman Roger Williams. We told Roger we need just a 5-minute speech, we don't need a long one. Well, y'all, he was incredible. He did a phenomenal job and talked about how the Texas delegation of Congress, of the U.S. Congress, would be full behind this museum and help. And then we had the same thing with the state legislature there. And anyway, it was an incredible night. We then took them to a football game, a Cowboy game, and on the opposite sideline, on the opposing team's sideline, inside Cowboy Stadium, the Cowboys game, there was Peyton Manning on the other side of the sideline. He had come down there And he went over and talked to the committee and so forth. Because committee was over on before the game. The committee was all on the Cowboys sideline, and Michael Irvin was there and saw him. And he went over and greeted Peyton. He said, "Peyton, you know good and well that Denver isn't the place for this." He said, "Folks," he said, "you ain't even going to be able to get through that snow to get to that museum most of the time." And he went through his rant and rage. We were scared that Michael Irvin might scare them off. But he did a really good job. And Peyton Manning was laughing there throughout it, so it didn't turn into that. But then we had, they called a board meeting in New York. The site selection team was there, went over all of the pros and cons of each. And they told us that they would call us after the board meeting on whether or not we or Denver were selected. And so I pulled together a big part of our team, and we just sat in the conference room waiting on them to tell us they're with it. And they called, and of course the chairman of the board said he really appreciated what we had done. And then he talked about that, you know, Denver was quite a place, and he went into several things there. Well, he took about 10 minutes to do that. When he first did it, I thought he was kidding. And then after a while, and literally, we're sitting there going, "Oh my goodness, we may not get this thing." And then he said, Arlington beat them on every point, but he said the most important one was, and General Brady said it not only at their board meeting, but he also said it at the press conference here in Arlington. He said the overwhelming reason that museum is coming here is because of the spirit of the people. He says they believe in our mission, they are patriotic, and we believe that we can get it done here in Arlington, Texas. So, Arlington is the home of the National Medal of Honor Museum, and it's being built out there right now, and I think it's going to be a game changer for America. I think it will be. Everyone got involved. You know, isn't it awesome when we have an objective we can go together and come together on, like the museum. And certainly it did turn out incredibly well, because we know what kind of impact that is going to have here, not only on our community, but also around the country. And imagine our youth studying a 2-week curriculum about the Medal of Honor Museum, and then being able to come out to the museum and be able to visit with Medal of Honor recipients, or to have a virtual tour. We actually will have the equipment to be able to give them a virtual tour for the ones that may not be able to get here, and then we'll be able to send out our Medal of Honor recipients and also other military heroes out into the country in championing these values. An interesting thing, Texas has more retired generals than any other state around. And they all have stories, don't they? And I don't want to leave out admirals either. You know, some of you Navy guys, we got admirals that are here too, and we'll be utilizing them. The museum was scheduled to open in November of 2024. And by the way, that was the schedule that was set in 2019. And it's going to open up in March of 2025. So it slid a little bit because of supply chain and the exhibits. But the committee, time and time again, and now the entire board has said that they picked the right place to come here in Arlington. And with all the hurdles there getting something like that built, it's happening, y'all. And I would encourage you to go on to Road to Six Flags, just north of the ballpark. And you can look off from there and really be able to see all the construction very well. Then you'll see the 5 pillars that are going to hold up the rectangular exhibit box. By the way, I normally have a PowerPoint, but I knew we were in this room, so it wouldn't do any good. But those 5 pillars represent each branch of the military. And of course, that is to hold up that huge steel rectangular box that is going to be the exhibit hall that's very heavy. And those pillars, as the military holds that heavy burden up, that's the burden of fighting for our freedom, the cost of freedom, and for fighting for your fellow soldiers as you're entering war. What great symbolism that will be, and it will make quite a statement. It also has a hole in the middle of that rectangle with a light beam going up. It looks like something that Paul Fultz would come up with. And of course, many have said that, hey, that beacon in the middle is going to be the symbol for our 6th branch of the military, which is Space Force, which is really amazing. That's a pretty cool deal too. But it will be a beacon for America, that the light that shines there comes from the National Medal of Honor Museum. Very excited about it. Love to answer any questions y'all may have. Yes.
You were talking about the progress we're making. What is your opinion of artificial intelligence or AI?
Okay, I love that. What is my opinion of artificial intelligence? Y'all, I speak to engineers all the time. You know, that's my profession. I think it is very incumbent upon engineers in particular to take a role of all inventions, including artificial intelligence, try them out, see how they can be used, but also to be looking out for the things that can be bad on this. And engineers need to take a lead in making sure that artificial intelligence is being used in positive ways, not negative. And we're going to have to set up laws and regulations there on how it is used. But something simple there that, well, I'll give you 2 examples of artificial intelligence that I think are going to be very effective. Each one of our Medal of Honor recipients is being filmed, and it's in HD film. There 100 hours of film talking to them. That will then be used in the museum, where you could go up to General Brady, who's 84 years old, I believe, right now, and he will never age from now on, because he'll be in that artificial intelligence, and you can talk to him just like we're talking right now and ask him questions, and artificial intelligence is enabling, taking his words and his mind and what they got to be able to respond to. So that's a good use of it. Another thing that amazed me, where we need to transpose several speeches. And you know, how many times have you had your, administrative assistant to transpose, it usually takes, if you have an hour of speech, it's gonna take you probably an hour and a half to get it transposed. Artificial intelligence now, literally within a minute, can transpose and create a transcript thereof. But we also know that we've got to be careful. There are more inventions coming out now than ever before. We have got to be there. And I tell my engineers that, hey, we are trained to be able to be looking at that, and we need to take a leadership role in helping to decide what is good and what is bad. I see a hand up over here. Oh, yeah, Mike.
Well, the only thing I'm not worried about it, but there's some people that have decided I should come up there and talk to National Transportation Safety Board that have some podcasts and different things like that. But eventually, what they're doing is they're working on the first airliner for commercial use that will use artificial
different things, but however, I think Mike hit on it. But still, right now, we're in an experimental stage, and we need to have the human there.
The only reason I brought that up is all these self-driving cars getting
Yes.
My feeling on it is, first it needs to be able to turn the lights on and off
Yeah, there you go.
before we start flying airplanes with it.
Yes, yes.
Reliably.
Reliable.
Go ahead.
It's gotta be perfect.
Well, I think you might be surprised to find out that artificial intelligence isn't as new as you think it is.
It's been around.
In 1963, I was working for Rocketdyne in California on the space program, on the Saturn V booster. And before that, I was at the University of Southern California doing my master's. And I had a professor in statistics, and he was a mathematician. And he told me an interesting, he told the whole class an interesting story. He said he worked for a chemical company. They were trying to build successful solid-state booster engines. The engines would blow up all the time. And he sat down with General Electric, and he wrote a program to process a multitude of variables to determine what was causing the problem and what could be discarded as extraneous information. And then how to take that and to predict whether or not they would get a successful fire. And it worked. Paul was able to develop, and they offered him the job as president of the company. He quit. And he said, I'm not a chemical engineer, I'm a mathematician. But he wrote this program for General Electric, and at Rocketdyne we had the General Electric terminals that were paper-driven. I don't know if you guys are young enough to know, but the program was done on paper, punch tape. And you fed it into the terminal. That's how you fed the data into the terminal. And NASA came to us and they said, we have a real serious concern. Our concern is that the way the booster is constructed, we have the engines and then we have a thermal shield around the engines. And the thermal shield creates a refrigerator effect while we load liquid oxygen. We chill the engines down. We also have loaded rocket fuel. And we're wondering whether or not the seals are going to leak and leak into the back that's in the thermal protection. And then as we go up through the atmosphere, we have a plume back effect, whether or not we blow all those off and we lose the rocket. And nobody could come up with an engineering way of determining it, because you had so many variables that you were dealing with. The weather, the wind, the temperature, the humidity, all kinds of variables took place over that 24 hours when you were preparing for launch. And so I was one of the project managers, and they said, what do you suggest we do to be able to assure NASA that we can predict what the seal leakage is going to be under various temperature and environmental conditions? And I said, well, that's interesting, because I told them the story about Professor Pounder and his program, and it was available on the GE terminal. And so I started getting all of the data from all of our test firings of the engines, both individually, and then as a booster in Huntsville. And then as we did the launches, and I would run the data, and we finally came up with an equation where we could predict what seal leakage was going to encounter, and whether or not we should abort the launch.
Thank you for that. I tell you what, NASA has come up with so many different inventions throughout the years. It's remarkable what has happened, and thank you for your service there, Marcia.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for sharing the story with the community.
My question is simple, so we have also the senior citizen coming, is being built, right?
Yes.
And can you tell us a little bit about the story, the senior citizen, and second, how, the community here is the senior club of Arlington, right? How can we all engage, the community engage to make it a success?
Okay. Let me share with you the origins of that, and then I would love for our two council members to tell me what's being built there, what's actually. But it was really a grassroots effort by our seniors that came forward there and said, hey, we want to have a senior adult recreation center. In fact, they had seen the one in Grand Prairie, and they said, hey, we deserve to have one. And however, though, there was a major discussion because some of the seniors wanted to see small senior facilities take place at every one of our existing recreation centers rather than one mega senior center. And even after it was voted on and decided, that argument kept coming up. Ultimately, it did win out that we needed a mega senior center there in it. And then here's a surprise, because many of you may be wondering, well, why did it end up in West Arlington? Well, there was a demographic study done by a consultant there on where would the site be that can reach more seniors than any other place in the city, and that's where they said. Actually, I thought it would end up being Vanderbilt, but when they did that study, the study showed that West Arlington was a better place. And I think partly a part of it is not only do we have a lot living there, but they're living off of Green Oaks Boulevard, so they can get there. And of course, the thing that I love now is that when we were first doing it, we didn't have VIA. Now, our seniors can take VIA and get there from anywhere in the city. And that's at an economical fee. And that's something that I think is just a phenomenal thing there, that we do have public transportation, but it's not costing $50 million a mile. It's costing us a few million a year, of which we get subsidized by the federal government. And it's convenient. We don't, you can be picked up within a block of your house or wherever you're at the nearest intersection, and then you're dropped off at the location you're going instead of, okay, well, John, can you give me a ride to get me to the bus station or to the rail station? And then, after I get there, I wonder how I'm going to be able to get from the end of that rail station to be able to get to my business so I can go to work or to school. We don't have to worry about that. And in fact, our school districts are actually using them to be able to transport our high school kids to get to the Dan Diker Technical Center and other places that they need to go. So we've solved that problem, and I appreciate the current council because they have continued to support it, and hopefully it'll be expanded to our neighboring cities. And I will say Arlington was the first city to do this, and now most major cities across America have implemented the same type program there in it, and it's been amazing. Now, I'd love to hear from Raul and Long Fam, our council members, about what are they building there, y'all? What are they going to
Well,
build?
first of all, they finally have a name for it. It's called Active, which is ACTIV, which I know people can say it's misspelled, but that's what was chosen by the community. They're basically gonna, put everything there from pickleball courts. There's gonna be 10 pickleball courts, which is really big. There's a lot of rumors that there's not going to be, like 6 outside, 4 inside. There's gonna be a wooden dance floor to replace the youth center. There's a lot of things that happen at the youth center that's not being held now, so there's a lot of the activities that are going there will be moving to the activity center. All the issues that we have with regards to the East Arlington Center there with regards to pool, having access to the pool for senior citizens, that's all being taken care of. So it includes everything from courts to, it's gonna be an activity center, a health place to be able to work out, a place, meeting rooms, it's gonna have everything. So we're really looking forward to it. It was approved by the voters in 2017, so we're really behind. But now that we finally have Ray Brown, we should be down here, I think in about a year and a half, is that what it is, if I remember correctly. So, but everything that you can think will be in there. I mean, so we're still getting input from the community and asking a lot of questions, but we hope everybody will be out there and we'll be excited to see the activity center open up here, next year. So.
Councilman, you have anything to add to that?
Also, I need to go to the summit because I want to see what it looks like, okay? I gotta pay $10. And, it looks pretty nice, but I think the active, activity center here gonna be a lot better. And like I say, people love pickleballs, and we do have pickleball courts inside of it. Because I know they have 2 in Great Fair, and I think they're gonna have more here. And also, there's a price list I already received from, I got a copy. So I go sit with, our city manager, and we work, to make sure we get the price more affordable for our senior. Okay, that's important. Also, I find out that if you on Medicaid, Medicare 65 older, and they can pay some of the fee to go enjoy the exercise. So that's another plus. Plus, we get the beer, and if you handicap, we get handy train in the city of Arlington. It's very affordable. And I don't know the hour of operation, but we need the hour of operation open later. We might have to work something out with the transportation for our seniors. So that's what the city often do for our citizens, especially for the seniors. So the price, that's my number one, I'm working on that. So the price, I want to be affordable for our seniors. And I'm looking forward to the day that they do the ribbon cutting and then we can buy all seniors, include Mayor Williams here.
Awesome. It's gonna be great.
Thank you for the city council report. So it's got a full court, gymnasium, aquatic component for both water, exercise and leisure, locker rooms, fitness areas, walking track, multi-purpose room for educational programs, events, cemetery activities, special events, and outdoor patio. Outdoor patio where you can eat with people and have, coffee and everything else. So it's gonna be a welcoming convenience. It's gonna look really nice, so.
I'm excited, y'all. It's so nice to see that in Apple's AMR.
I'm not gonna say that I live across the street, but, the thing is.
You're only a couple miles down the road.
I'm across the street. So, anyway, the nice thing that'll also be there is the fire center is right there, so you can have everybody come over to restart their heart so you can continue with the work out. And the police are gonna be there in case anything goes wrong, so everybody right there, water treatment plant, you get to drink of water whenever you want, you find the freshest water that you can anywhere in the United States, that's all. That's what I think we should be happy for.
Okay, well, I'm gonna just close now and let you know too, we have raised $220 million for 240, all private money that's come in, there for it. It's pretty uplifting. I've never gone out and raised money where people actually thank me for coming and asking for money. But this is what this type of facility is with the Medal of Honor Museum. And that's where I've been spending a lot of my volunteer time and will continue to do that. And then they've asked me to lead conferences for mayors around the country to come in and hear from a Medal of Honor recipient and to hear them talk about the importance of these character values. And then we will be talking about how you implement these character values while running a city there with it. And then we'll be expanding there to council members and also nonprofit officers there as we go. I'm looking forward to it. I really have hopes that the Medal of Honor Museum is going to make a difference in people's lives all over the country. And then the last thing that I think that is a part of this that y'all would want to know is that we are nonpartisan. We're not Democrat, we're not Republican. We hold the world legals.
That's my daughter, that's her thing.
So we are hopeful that world leaders will be coming to this museum to meet and talk about how we can break down barriers and develop processes to actually solve the world's problems. And imagine that, coming here to Arlington, Texas. Imagine all of the great people that will be coming here, and we'll have an opportunity to get to know them, but even more importantly, our kids, our grandkids, and our great-grandkids will get a chance to get to know these people and have an opportunity for them to feed into their lives. Thank y'all for what y'all did to help bring it here.
Don't sit down just yet. Jeff, thank you for who you are, what you've done for Arlington, even before you were mayor, and now you're continuing on. Proud of you. $100 more for the National Guard meeting.
Thank you, John. And then thank y'all for your friendship. Very much appreciated. Thanks for the opportunity to come. And y'all spread the story of why that museum picked Arlington, Texas, and the fact that they're glad they did.
Okay, now, that's all, folks.
So my daughter's a PhD, she always
Have you ever been reading Gordon's?